Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a journey into the darkest, most hidden corners of human psychology, where unseen battles are fought every single day behind closed doors. Have you ever felt like you are trapped in an invisible web, spun by someone who feeds entirely on your emotional energy and slowly drains the very life force out of your soul? You are dealing with a master manipulator. They are a psychological predator. They thrive in the shadows of your self-doubt and confusion. Today, we are going to talk about a truth so quiet you might have missed it, but so powerful it can change the rules of the game forever. We're talking about a choice that doesn't just disarm the narcissist, it gives you back the life they've been trying to steal. Imagine waking up every morning with a heavy weight pressing on your chest. You know you are about to step into a psychological minefield. In that place, every word you speak can be used against you. The narcissist has carefully constructed a false reality. It is like a funhouse of mirrors. Up becomes down, wrong becomes right, and somehow you are always the one to blame. They have conditioned you to react, to defend yourself, to scream into the void, and to beg for a sliver of understanding that they never intend to give. This is their domain, their kingdom of chaos, and as long as you are playing by their twisted, unpredictable rules, you are a prisoner locked in a cage of your own emotional responses. For a long time, you probably believed the only way to defeat them was to outsmart them. You searched for the perfect words. You hoped those words would finally make them see the truth of their toxic behavior. You spend countless sleepless nights rehearsing arguments in your head, gathering irrefutable evidence, and hoping that logic and reason will eventually pierce through their thick armor of delusion and grandiosity. But every time you engage, the same thing happens. You bring your arguments to the battlefield. In return, you face gaslighting and deflection. Sometimes you face terrifying rage. And in the end, you feel even more exhausted and empty. You are fighting a ghost, a hollow entity that uses your own vibrant, desperate energy to sustain its fragile, terrifying existence. What you must understand right now, in this very moment, is that the narcissist does not want a resolution. They do not want peace, and they absolutely do not care about the objective truth of any situation you present to them. What they want is your reaction. What they need to survive is your emotional response, your tears, your anger, your frustration, even your desperate pleas for basic decency. This emotional output is known as narcissistic supply, and it is the dark, twisted oxygen that fills their lungs and inflates their fragile ego to monstrous, intimidating proportions. When you fight back, when you cry, when you try to explain yourself, you are unknowingly handing them the very weapon they use to subjugate and destroy your sense of self. But what if I told you that there is a way to stop this agonizing cycle dead in its tracks? A method so profoundly simple yet so unbelievably devastating that it feels almost like dark magic when you finally put it into practice. This is not about screaming louder, it is not about plotting elaborate revenge, and it is certainly not about trying to destroy their reputation in the eyes of the outside world that they have so carefully manipulated. The method I am about to reveal operates quietly in the background, requiring absolutely no aggressive action, no heated confrontations, and no dramatic showdowns. It is a weapon forged in the quiet depths of your own inner strength, and it is the one thing that strikes absolute, paralyzing terror into the cold heart of every single narcissist on this planet. This silent strength is the power of absolute emotional detachment. It's a state where you become like a mountain. Clouds of their drama may swirl around your peak, and storms of their rage may break against your sides, but you do not move. You are simply there, unshaken, untouchable, and completely at peace. Psychologists call this the gray rock method. But using it effectively requires more than acting boring. It demands a deeper shift. You must emotionally detach completely. It is a fundamental internal shift where you completely sever the invisible energetic cord that ties your emotional state to their toxic, unpredictable behavior. You become a fortress of silence, an impenetrable wall of utter indifference that their manipulative tactics simply bounce off of, leaving them grasping at thin air. To understand why this silence unsettles them, You have to look beneath the mask they show the world. Behind that mask is not power, it is fear, a fragile identity hiding in the shadows. A narcissist does not possess a stable identity. Inside, they often feel empty. They rely on other people's reactions to feel real. Your emotions become the mirror they depend on. When you react with intense emotion, even if that emotion is pure hatred or profound sorrow, you are confirming to them that they exist, that they matter, and that they have the godlike power to alter the emotional state of another human being. Your emotional reaction is the mirror they look into to see their own reflection. And without it, they are plunged into a terrifying darkness. When you begin using this silent strategy, you are essentially shattering that mirror into a million pieces, refusing to give them the reflection they so desperately need to maintain their grandiose delusion of absolute control and superiority. Imagine trying to start a fire in a room with no oxygen. The match sparks again and again, but nothing ignites. That is exactly what happens when a narcissist loses your reaction. Without your emotions, their drama has nothing to burn. You stop arguing. You stop defending yourself. You stop trying to explain your point of view. Instead, you offer them nothing but silence, a cold, emotionless void they cannot understand or manipulate. And that silence becomes unbearable. Because for the first time, they are forced to face the emptiness they spend so much energy trying to hide. Let's walk through what actually happens the moment you decide to stop playing their game. The moment you choose to stand in your own quiet truth, instead of stepping onto the chaotic stage they've built for you. They will approach you with their usual arsenal of subtle digs, backhanded compliments, or blatant, aggressive accusations designed specifically to trigger the trauma bonds they have so carefully instilled within you over time. Normally, this is the exact moment you would rise to the bait, your heart racing, your voice trembling as you step into the trap they have laid out for you with a wicked, unseen smile. But this time, you do something entirely unexpected, something that breaks the fundamental script of your entire relationship. You do absolutely nothing. You look at them with eyes that are completely devoid of warmth, fear, or anger, projecting a calm, eerie stillness that feels completely alien to the chaotic dynamic they have always controlled. If you must speak, your words are terrifyingly brief, monotonous, and completely stripped of any underlying emotional resonance. Simple phrases like, "I see," "Okay," or "if you say so," delivered with the enthusiasm of someone reading a grocery list. You do not sigh, you do not roll your eyes, and you do not cross your arms in a defensive posture. Your body language remains as loose and unbothered as if they were a gentle, meaningless breeze passing through the room. This total lack of resistance creates a sudden, jarring vacuum in the conversation, a terrifying void where their power used to reside. In those first few moments of choosing this silent boundary, you will witness a subtle but unmistakable shift in the narcissist's demeanor. A brief flicker of genuine confusion crossing their carefully controlled features. They will process the interaction, waiting for the familiar rush of power that comes from your distress. But instead, they are met with a cold, hard wall of nothingness that completely short-circuits their manipulative programming. They will quickly try to recalibrate, assuming that perhaps they simply did not push the right button, or that they need to turn up the intensity of their provocation to get the desired, explosive result. This is the moment where the unseen tension in the room thickens, becoming almost suffocating as they prepare to launch a secondary, much more aggressive assault on your boundaries. This brings us to the most dangerous and suspenseful phase of using this silent strategy, the dreaded extinction burst, a psychological phenomenon where their behavior dramatically worsens before it eventually stops entirely. When a narcissist realizes that their primary source of supply is suddenly cutting them off, they do not just quietly accept defeat and walk away. They panic, and that panic manifests as a terrifying escalation of their worst, most toxic traits. They will dig into your deepest insecurities, bring up past traumas, launch horrific smear campaigns, and attempt to manufacture absolute chaos in your life just to force you to break your silence and react. It is a psychological siege, a desperate attempt to breach the walls of your newfound indifference and drag you back into the mud with them. During this escalating siege, the temptation to break your silence and fight back will feel almost irresistible, a burning itch in your mind urging you to defend yourself and set the record straight. They will say things that are outrageously false, deeply unfair, and cruel. Every part of you will want to respond, to shout the truth from the rooftops and expose them for what they really are. But you must remember the cold logic of this toxic dynamic. Breaking your silence is like handing them back the power you just reclaimed. You must hold the line. Breathe through the discomfort and anchor yourself in a simple truth. Your silence weakens them far more than any words ever could. I know how hard this is. I know your heart might be racing right now just thinking about it. Every fiber of your being has been trained to defend yourself, to explain, and to be understood. But remember, your silence isn't a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate boundary. It is you saying, "My peace is no longer up for negotiation." You are not losing the argument, you are ending the war. As you maintain your impenetrable silence through the storm of their extinction burst, something truly remarkable and deeply satisfying begins to happen beneath the surface of the conflict. The narcissist, starved of the emotional energy they need to sustain their false self, begins to internally unravel, their mask slipping to reveal the frantic, deeply insecure child that lives behind the terrifying facade. Their attacks become less strategic and more chaotic. Their arguments lose their sharp, manipulative edge, and their actions begin to look incredibly desperate, pathetic, and fundamentally unhinged. They are drowning in the very void they tried to push you into, suffocating on the absolute lack of attention and emotional validation that you are now ruthlessly withholding from them. You are no longer the victim in this dynamic. You have silently transformed into the observer, watching from a place of supreme, untouchable power as they frantically dance for a reaction that is never, ever coming. You begin to see their tactics not as terrifying threats, but as deeply predictable, almost tragic mechanisms of a broken psyche that is utterly dependent on the exploitation of others to feel alive. The fear that used to grip your heart every time they entered the room begins to evaporate, replaced by a cold, clinical understanding of their severe limitations and their pathetic reliance on your energy. Your quiet detachment has effectively flipped the script, turning the almighty predator into a starving, powerless entity banging its fists against a fortified emotional vault. The absolute brilliance of this quiet detachment lies in the fact that it gives the narcissist absolutely nothing tangible to use against you in their twisted campaigns of manipulation and deceit. If you yell, they can tell the world that you are crazy and abusive. If you cry, they can tell everyone that you are overly sensitive and emotionally unstable, playing the victim card to perfection. But when you offer them nothing but a calm, unbothered silence, they have no ammunition, no dramatic stories to twist, and no evidence of your supposed instability to parade in front of their flying monkeys, the people they have manipulated into doing their dirty work. They are left trying to complain about your lack of reaction, which only serves to make them look irrational, demanding, and deeply controlling to anyone who is actually paying attention to the reality of the situation. Furthermore, the use of this silent weapon initiates a profound, miraculous healing process within your own mind and body, a slow but steady reclaiming of the territory they had violently occupied in your soul. For months or even years, your nervous system has been trapped in a perpetual state of fight or flight, flooded with cortisol and adrenaline as you constantly anticipated their next unpredictable, devastating attack. By refusing to engage, you are sending a powerful, biological signal to your own brain that the threat is no longer relevant, allowing your frayed nerves to finally begin the slow, necessary process of decompression and recovery. You are literally rewiring your brain to stop perceiving them as a threat, draining the power they hold over your physical and emotional well-being drop by agonizing drop. As your silence continues to echo in the dark spaces between you, the narcissist will inevitably reach a breaking point, a moment of profound realization that the well of your emotional supply has truly run dry. They cannot survive in a vacuum. Their psychological makeup demands constant, uninterrupted feeding, and if they cannot extract that lifeblood from you, they will be forced by their own toxic nature to seek it elsewhere. This is the moment their power over you is completely and irreversibly destroyed, as they slowly begin to pivot away from you, casting their predatory gaze out into the world to find a new, easier target to manipulate. They are not leaving because they have grown or realized their mistakes. They are retreating because your silent weapon has made you completely uninhabitable for their parasitic existence. It is deeply important to understand that maintaining this silent shield is not a one-time event, but a continuous, disciplined practice that requires an immense amount of focus, self-awareness, and unwavering internal strength. There will be days when the silence feels incredibly heavy, when the urge to justify yourself threatens to boil over, and when the ghost of their manipulation tries to whisper doubts into your ear in the dead of night. You must treat your silence as a sacred boundary, an invisible guardian that you carry with you into every single interaction, constantly reinforcing its strength through radical self-care and a deep commitment to your own peace. Every time you successfully bite your tongue and choose indifference over engagement, you are laying another brick in the impenetrable fortress of your renewed self-worth. You must also be prepared for the eerie, unsettling quiet that follows the destruction of their power. A sudden absence of chaos that might actually feel uncomfortable or boring after living in a war zone for so long. Trauma bonds are incredibly powerful, and your brain may actually crave the intense highs and devastating lows of the narcissistic cycle, confusing that toxic turbulence with passion or genuine connection. You have to sit with this discomfort, allowing the silence to wash over you, recognizing that this unfamiliar stillness is not emptiness, but the beautiful, expansive space where your true life can finally begin to grow again. The silent weapon clears the battlefield, but it is up to you to plant the seeds of your new, empowered reality in the rich soil of your hard-won peace. In the grand, terrifying game of narcissistic abuse, the only way to truly win is to absolutely refuse to play, to step off the board entirely and let them knock over the pieces in an empty, echoing room. Your silence is the ultimate declaration of independence, a wordless manifesto that loudly proclaims you are no longer a character in their twisted narrative, no longer a prop to prop up their fragile ego. It is a terrifying realization for them, a nightmare come to life, because your silence proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that they are fundamentally irrelevant to your happiness, your success, and your future. You have taken the one thing they value most, your attention, and locked it away in a vault where they can never, ever reach it again. Let the shadows of their manipulation fade away as you stand firm in your quiet power, knowing that every single moment of your profound indifference is a devastating blow to their entire false reality. They may try to hover around the edges of your life, sending out tiny, pathetic probes to see if your defenses have weakened. But your silent weapon remains ever vigilant, deflecting their attempts with cold, hard apathy. You do not hate them. You do not love them. You simply do not care about them at all anymore. They have become a neutral, meaningless fact of the universe, like a rock on the side of the road that you walk past without a second glance. This is the ultimate destruction of a narcissist, not with a bang, but with a quiet, fading whimper, as they disappear into the irrelevance they have always secretly feared. The journey to mastering this silent weapon is undoubtedly one of the hardest things you will ever have to do, requiring you to conquer your own ego, your own need for justice, and your own deeply ingrained patterns of reaction. It requires you to mourn the illusion of the person you thought they were, to accept the terrifying reality of their condition, and to grieve the time and energy you lost in the labyrinth of their deceit. But on the other side of that grief, waiting for you in the beautiful golden light of your silent victory, is a version of yourself that is completely unbreakable, deeply grounded, and fiercely protective of your own energy. You have walked through the darkest valley of psychological warfare, armed with nothing but the quiet truth of your own worth, and you have emerged completely victorious. As you move forward into the rest of your life, carry this quiet strength with you, not as a tool of malice, but as an eternal guardian of your peace, a quiet sentinel that stands watch over your heart and mind. You now know the signs, you know the feeling of the invisible web being spun, and you know exactly how to sever the threads before they can ever take hold of your spirit again. The power was never truly theirs, it was always yours, temporarily borrowed through trickery and deceit, and now you have taken it back in the most devastatingly quiet way possible. The narcissist is left to wander the shadows alone, forever searching for a spark to light their darkness, while you step out into the brilliant, quiet dawn of your absolute freedom. If this journey into the shadows has resonated with you, if you have felt the suffocating weight of a narcissist's power and are ready to stand in the strength of absolute detachment, I want to hear your story. Share your experiences in the comments below. Let us build a community of quiet warriors who understand the immense, terrifying power of walking away in complete and utter silence. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an episode as we continue to decode the darkest mysteries of the human mind and arm you with the psychological tools you need to survive. Until next time, guard your energy, trust your intuition, and remember that sometimes the most destructive force in the world makes absolutely no sound at all.